Just across the street, where the flower fields will bloom in Carlsbad, is the Museum of Making Music. It is housed in the National Association of Music Merchants building on Armada Drive. The Museum of Making Music opened to the public in the year 2000 and recognizes the achievements of the people who create, sell, and use musical instruments. One of the first displays shows different types of acoustic guitars used by musicians. This nickel-silver resonator guitar produces a louder sound at the cost of losing some of the deep resonant tones that come from a wooden acoustic guitar. It does have a unique look with its 3 resonators. This Knudsen harp guitar from 1908 has 5 more strings to increase the volume and low-end range of the instrument. Notice the harp strings don't have a fingerboard, so the musician is limited to playing the 5 pitches they are tuned to. When acoustic guitars are made, they have cross-bracing on the inside of the body of the guitar in order to regulate sound and provide stability during performance. Rainsong makes carbon fiber or graphite guitars, which are strong enough to forego the internal cross-bracing, allowing for generation of a louder sound. Ukuleles are one of the easiest instruments to pick up and learn to play. The mellow, sweet sound of a ukulele often has a calming effect on our ears. Their small size are good for children, and the 4 nylon strings are easier on the fingers as opposed to the steel strings of acoustic guitars. Ukuleles originated from Portugal in the 1880s and were popularized in Hawaii. 2 notable Hawaiian musicians who play or have played the ukulele are Jake Shimabukuro and Israel Kamaka-Vivole. Ukuleles come in different sizes, with the larger ones producing a bigger, more resonant sound. Although they are not priced as low as advertised in this Sears Roebuck catalog, even today, ukuleles are some of the most affordable instruments available. Here are banjoleles and a banjolin. They have the body of a banjo with the strings and tuning of a ukulele or mandolin. In the 1880s, the mandolin was popularized by a touring ensemble called the Spanish Students, who played a similar instrument called the bandurria. Interest grew, especially among Italian immigrants, forming mandolin groups which served to increase the demand for mandolins. There's even a mandolin orchestra here in San Diego that has been playing and performing for over half a century, based at Mesa College. Seen here are various sizes and shapes of mandolins. Larger ones produce lower pitches, and the older bowl-back design gradually gave way to a flatter shape, which is more compact and has greater volume. Mandolins are quite portable, most being the size of a guitar or smaller, except for the mando bass. The mando bass is so large, it is not held in the lap, but instead sat or stood behind with a spike that supports its body on the floor. You'll notice the mando bass has 4 strings. Normal mandolins have 4 sets of 2 strings each. This increases the sustain of each note played by vibrating the pairs of strings together, which also contributes to the richness of sound. Bill Monroe, heard here, is known as the father of bluegrass, and played his mandolin along with his bluegrass boys for nearly 60 years. The banjo is considered a mainstay of country, folk, and bluegrass music here in America. Its origins trace to West Africa and came in the form of a banjar or gourd banjo, transported with enslaved Africans brought to America against their will. The drum-like head of the banjo produces its signature, snappy, twangy sound. It can be played by strumming, finger-picking, or claw hammer. Finger picks allow players to perform a pattern of notes called a banjo roll, which is a series of repeated broken chords that gives songs a richer sound. The finger picks allow for astonishingly fast barrages of notes on the banjo. Currently playing is a clip of Foggy Mountain Breakdown by Earl Scruggs. He popularized the three-finger picking style, and along with Lester Flatt, co-wrote the Ballad of Jed Clampett, used in the Beverly Hillbillies TV show. Clawhammer somewhat describes the shape of the musician's strumming hand. Strings are struck with the fingernails of either the index or middle finger and plucked with the fleshy part of the thumb. The clip playing here is an example of clawhammer style. You can hear the light tapping sound of the fingernails on the banjo head. The accordion was invented in Vienna in 1829. It quickly made its way to the United States, along with the families who immigrated from Europe. Despite its predominance across the Atlantic, mainstream America was unfamiliar with the accordion. At least until Guido Deiro performed in 1909 at the Alaska-Yukon Pacific Exposition in Seattle and also in San Francisco. The recording playing here was restored by UCLA and features Guido Deiro himself. Like many stringed instruments, the accordion was portable and could be brought to new lands by ship. Unlike stringed instruments, it draws its sound from a bellows that pumps air across brass or steel strips called reeds, in accordance to the key or bass button being pressed. Accordions became popular, and even youth accordion bands were being formed. One of the accordions at the museum is signed by members of Los Tigres del Norte, who have performed norteño music for close to 6 decades. The museum displays components found in a conventional drum kit, like different cymbals here, including samples of their castings and how they appear during production. Here are Remo Sparkletone drum heads, with their blue, silver, green, red, and gold colors, surrounding a Liberty Drum Company snare drum from around 1910 with a calf or goatskin head. There are bass drum pedals like this one from 1909 and a newer dual pedal model for faster bass drumming. A few drum kits are displayed, with this one showing the fine workmanship put into crafting the design, in addition to the focus on sound and ease of use. Here's another drum kit with 3 Chinese tom-toms, 2 cymbals, a snare, and a decorative bass, with an internal lamp to regulate temperature. Late 19th century America saw the rise of the middle class, who had enough income to dedicate a portion to luxury and leisure pursuits. By the turn of the 20th century, people were motivated to improve themselves and declare they were successful. What better way than to purchase a piano and display it in their Victorian parlor room for all to see and hear? The demand for pianos allowed manufacturers to lower costs and also focus on art case pianos, which would be designated for the upper or upper middle class that could afford them. This one features dancers and musicians on the side, and more hand-painted scenes on the lid and casing. It's a 1902 Steinway & Sons grand piano. The role of the piano gradually changed from a trophy of achievement to a center for entertainment. Look at this 1939 Dynatone electric piano. On the left side, it has a drawer with a phonograph player that can be hidden under the keyboard. On the right, a radio tuner to listen to news, sports broadcasts, radio shows, and music. This Metro-style pianola by the Orchestral Company is a push-up player. The two pedals are pumped to drive the machine with air. It can be rolled or pushed up to any piano to play all 88 keys according to the piano roll installed. Here's a photo of another that shows the mechanism of the push-up player. Listen to the following chord and trill exercise as it plays with ease, even when the tempo has been raised by 40%. Here's a 1923 Chickering & Sons reproducing player piano that not only plays notes on the roll, but can perform the tempo and dynamics expressed by the performer when the roll was created. It is similar to digital audio recording we have now, with the added benefit of seeing the keys exactly as they were played by the original artist. 60 years later, in a similar fashion to how the piano roll controls the piano, a technology called MIDI was invented. MIDI stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. It is a standardized communication link which allows computers and instruments from different manufacturers to talk with one another. MIDI was unveiled at the 1983 Winter Show of NAMM, or National Association of Music Merchants, the very same organization that houses the Museum of Making Music. Let's demonstrate how music is made using MIDI. All of the original music for San Diego Review is created using MIDI cables between a computer and a synthesizer. Data like pitch, velocity, and timing are transferred. No actual sound signal is passed through the cable. In this case, the sound is generated by the computer program called a Digital Audio Workstation, or DAW for short. For this demonstration, we're using Caustic 3 with its built-in synthesizers controlled by a connected MIDI keyboard. It's simple, but effective. First, we'll turn on the metronome for rhythm reference. Using the drum machine, we can record a simple drum beat. Next, the saw synth for a melody. That looks good. The low-frequency oscillator can be selected for pitch, detune, cutoff. We'll select volume and adjust the rate. Finally, on the FM synth, we'll record backing chords. The sequencer can be used to fine-tune the rhythm to our liking. We'll just highlight the last chord and move them over one column. Let's lower the volume a little bit and make it more of a percussive shaker sound. We can also use an insert effect to give the chords a phaser quality. Turning the delay on the saw synth will make the melody echo slightly. We'll increase the bass on the drums a little and increase the reverb on the chords. You can quickly see and hear how a digital audio workstation is like having an electronic orchestra. Television played a major role in spreading music to the masses. On February 9, 1964, the Beatles played on The Ed Sullivan Show. Within the following days, the demand for rock and roll instruments skyrocketed. Instrument manufacturers rode the wave of fame created by the Beatles. The museum has a 1968 version of Paul McCartney's Hofner bass, set up for left-handed playing. The Ludwig Drum Company had to expand their factory by 100,000 square feet to keep up with the demand for Beatles drum kits. John Lennon played a Rickenbacker 325, which is similar to the 1966 model here at the museum. Because of the demand for these instruments, ukuleles could be marketed and sold as junior-size guitars. There were enough customers to where department and toy stores started selling instruments without taking foot traffic away from traditional music retailers. Retailers of today, like Sweetwater, are online and can reach customers in their homes. Anything can be purchased online and shipped, from groove boxes and effects pedals to keyboards and microphones. Convenience is at our fingertips. For those of you who want to record music or vocals, a good microphone is a must. Two examples are the Shure SM57 and SM58. The SM57 on the upper left is for instruments. The SM58 on the right is for vocals. They are and have been standards of the music industry since 1965. Having too many choices is overwhelming. As with almost any endeavor, in music there are degrees of involvement which drive instrument selection and quality. Take for instance these 4 trumpets. Can you tell any difference? For most of us, they look identical. For someone who plays trumpet, they could tell which one is best and why. The one on the bottom is a student trumpet, with yellow brass construction, lighter weight, and lower cost. The next one higher is for an intermediate student, with a gold brass bell, providing a richer tone. The third is specifically made for mariachi, with a strong attack and crisp tone. The top one is for professional trumpeters, with focus on tone quality, projection, and intonation. If you are interested in making music, it's best to start with an entry-level instrument, gauge how your enjoyment is held by practicing and playing, and move to a higher quality instrument once you're sure your attention will continue. Unlike trumpets, many acoustic instruments don't project a great volume of sound. With bigger venues and performances for larger audiences, musicians needed a way to ensure their instruments could be heard. Electrical amplification was the answer. George Beauchamp captured the sound of the vibrating strings on his guitar using 2 large magnets and a wire in order to amplify and project the sound out of a speaker. His instrument was nicknamed the frying pan for its resemblance to the kitchen appliance, and it could play loud enough to be heard even when accompanying a large ensemble. This Premier Vox electric guitar was sold in Europe in 1935. It comes with its own amplifier that doubles as a carrying case. The addition of electricity not only increased the volume of guitars, but allowed for more freedom of body styles. Because the pickups were focused on string vibration instead of body resonance, guitar bodies were made solid, with a slimmer profile, and eventually could be produced with a whole selection of shapes. A practical demonstration of the portability of electric instruments is shown by looking at these two double basses. The acoustic is 6 feet tall and weighs 25 pounds. The NS Design electric double bass is about 3.5 feet and weighs under 11 pounds. Electric instruments also permit the musician to manipulate the sound coming from the instrument. For electric guitars, stomp boxes or foot pedals allow for adding effects like distortion, delay, reverb, and wah. There is a display which points out some of the innovations in musical instrument development. The saxophone is one of the few instruments in the world invented by a single individual. Adolphe Sax was born in Belgium, and not only designed musical instruments, but played many wind instruments as well. He wanted to combine the agility of a woodwind with the projection of brass. The result is the saxophone. It's made of brass, but classified as a woodwind because of the reed used to produce sound. Adolphe Sax's instrument became popular about 2 decades after his death in 1894, but the saxophone remains one of the primary instruments for jazz music. The Chapman stick was created in 1969 by Emmett Chapman, who played notes by tapping the frets on his guitar. The clip playing is Emmett Chapman on his instrument. He designed these 10-string guitar-like fretboards, which could be held in a more upright position and tapped with both hands. It really sounds like 2 guitars played by 2 people, doesn't it? One of the strangest, most futuristic-sounding instruments created from the 1920s is the theremin. In 1919, Russian scientist Leon Theremin was working on a meter to measure the density of gases. As he moved his hand closer to the meter, he heard a higher squeal. When he moved it away, a lower squeal was heard. He went on to create the theremin, a wooden box housing electronics with vertical and horizontal antennae. Here's another version created by Robert Moog in 2004. The 2 electromagnetic fields around the antennae are broken by the performer's hands to change pitch and volume. Clara Rockmore became a theremin virtuoso and worked with theremin to improve the sound and range of the instrument. The clip playing is Clara Rockmore performing The Swan by Saint-Saëns. With the right technique, it almost sounds like a human voice. The theremin is the only instrument played without physically touching it, making the performance much more difficult without any tangible reference to gauge pitches or intervals. Behind the theremins is the 1939 Hammond Novachord, the first commercially sold polyphonic synthesizer. All 72 keys can be played at the same time because of its 163 vacuum tubes. The RCA Mark II was a flagship synthesizer installed at Columbia University in 1957. Now, imagine if you can have similar usefulness in a mini casing. The Mini Moog did away with large modular systems and patch cords everywhere. It was a portable, performance-oriented instrument that could be set up on stage quickly. The Oberheim OB1 could play one note at a time and was the first synth to allow save and recall of settings. The Prophet 5 could play 5 notes at once, save and load settings, and was the first synthesizer with a microprocessor. Here's a Yamaha DX7, which was at the higher end of synths when it came out in 1983. The quality of the instrument presets let musicians create music immediately. The ARP 2600 is a semi-modular system and was used to make R2-D2's voice in Star Wars. Here is the extremely complex setup used by Don Lewis to create his live electronic orchestra. Everything was intended to be performed by himself, seated in the center, acting as conductor. This one is a Korg VC10 vocoder, used by groups like Kraftwerk to manipulate voices. Let's see how this would be done using our Caustic 3 program and keyboard. First, we record a simple drum beat. Then, a buzzy note on the backbeat. Next, we'll use the marimba for a bass line. For those of you who know, the saw synth will give away what song this resembles. Now, we can fine-tune the instruments. Let's change the waveform. For the beehive, let's select a sine wave and bend it slightly and increase release so it pings. The kick drum and tom-tom need more volume and a lower tuning here. Now we'll scroll to the mixer, increase the reverb on the saw synth and subsynth. Let's raise the tempo to 112. That's a good speed. Now we'll use the vocoder to record the vocals solo. Check, check. We are not the robots. We are not the robots. We have 2 recordings. Let's normalize. Crop. We are not the robots. We are not the robots. We'll take the first one. Crop again. Normalize. We are not the robots. Sounds good. Name it Not Robots. Now with the vocoder, there are 2 signals, a modulator and a carrier. The modulator in this case is the phrase we just recorded, with a focus on the shape of the vowels, consonants, plosives, or any other sound, minus the pitch. What we're doing here is telling the sequencer when to use the modulator phrase, "We are not the robots." The carrier is what determines the sound of the resulting voice along with the musical pitch. We'll record that now. Oops, we'll fix it. Okay. We'll highlight these. Delete. And extend these notes. Let's raise the volume and change the EQ so it stands out. Slew. Dry adds the original recording, but we want full robot mode. More noise, and turn up the sub. Okay. Now, here's the final with all instruments. Let's add reverb and mid-range on the robot. With all the AI in the news, they say, if you can't beat them, join them. Maybe we are the robots. The Museum of Making Music has a few tables where visitors can try out a Pioneer DJ system, a Moog Grandmother analog synth, and an Akai MPC-1 sequencer. For those of us not as savvy with technology, we can instead look across the room at more exhibits, like this 1909 Victor V phonograph. If you're interested in seeing more phonographs and items from last century and beyond, search for and view the San Diego review of the J.A. Cooley Museum after this one. Instruments are available for guests to play and try their skills at making music, or just to have fun. There is another hands-on location near the center of the museum exhibit. The museum has a projection room with images on the walls. What is the purpose of music? Why is it so important to us humans? It allows us to express emotions and feelings in a way that's more immediate than words alone. We can share our musical experiences with others. The creation of music and lyrics expands our horizons to reach out for the stars. Music legends from the past and present speak to us through their songs, and many of us identify with what's communicated. Music is there in times of celebration, and music is there in times of introspection or looking inward. Maya Angelou says, "Everything in the universe has a rhythm. Everything dances. It is up to us to find the right song for the dance, as music opens doors in all of us. So we can embark on our journey of making music to feel alive." If you enjoyed this video, help this channel grow for free by clicking like, sharing it with others, and most of all, clicking subscribe. Thanks for watching San Diego Review.